can parents raise emotionally secure and healthy children? Well, at least one important answer to that question is found in achieving a delicate balance between love and control. But obviously, many parents struggle to find this balance. Either they become too harsh and oppressive, or they lean in the direction of permissiveness and overprotection. In part 2 of this Focus on the Family series, Dr. James Dobson, Associate Clinical Professor of Pediatrics at the University of Southern California School of Medicine, presents a strategy through which parents and teachers can provide the discipline every child needs while preserving and protecting his delicate sense of self-esteem and worthiness. In the process, Dr. Dobson offers some advice on how to avoid the most common mistake in parenting. The target? To shape the will without breaking the spirit. Let's join Dr. James Dobson in Laurie Auditorium.
Now, folks, what I need to do at this moment is to discuss with you what I consider to be the most common mistake that parents and teachers make in handling the strong-willed child or in handling discipline of any sort. And it has to do with using anger to motivate children instead of using action to motivate children. Anger does not motivate human beings. It won't work. It doesn't work with you. It doesn't work with me. Let's suppose when you leave here tonight, you're driving home and you're going too fast. You're going 45 in a 25, and there's a policeman standing on the corner, and he does not have a squad car, and he does not have a badge, and he doesn't have a gun, and he can't write tickets, and he doesn't have a motorcycle, and he can't chase you down. He is commissioned only to stand on the corner and scream at you as you go by. Is that going to slow you down? Of course not. You might wave at him as you went by. His anger will have nothing to do with the way you drive. You don't care if he gets mad or not. That has nothing to do with it. It does not enter into your motivational system. What does influence the way you drive is when you're driving 45 in a 25 and you look in the rearview mirror and you see a squad car coming toward you with 104 red lights flashing, and a guy pulls you over to the curb, and out steps a patrolman, and he's about 6'9", and he's wearing leather boots, and he looks so immaculate, and he's got a voice like the Lone Ranger, and he's got a gun on each hip, and he walks up to your window, and he says, "Sir, we had a radar unit on you back there, and it showed you were going 45 in a 25. May I see your driver's license, please?" You see, he's not angry. He's not pounding his fist on the hood. He's not saying, "Why do you drive so fast?" And what do? He says this so calmly, and you go all to pieces. Your hands are trembling, and you're looking for that little card with a horrible Polaroid picture on it, and your sweat's on your forehead, and you're trembling and shaking. Why? He hasn't done anything. He's been polite. He's dignified. All he did was ask you for your driver's license. But you see, what he is about to do with that little leather book is notoriously unpleasant. See, it is his action that influences the way you drive, not his anger. He has lost it if he starts showing anger and hostility. It doesn't work. It assassinates his authority. That's why they teach him to be so reserved. That's why they teach him to be so dignified. He spent a long time learning that. The moment he loses that and begins to show his emotion, then his authority has begun to crumble. Why do you think they put a judge high up on a bench with a black robe? Why does everybody stand up when he comes into the room? Why does he appear so objective? Why do you not see his emotions? Because his authority demands it. Authority demands a certain resolve, a certain confidence. And anger, I think, is the poorest motivator. It doesn't work with children, and in fact, assassinates your authority and your leadership at home. Teachers make this mistake. I heard a teacher on national television not too long ago say that she enjoys teaching. She enjoys the profession that she chose, but she hates her job on a day-by-day basis because, she said, I have to stay angry at my kids all day to get them to do what I want them to do. You see, she's making the mistake of using anger to motivate. It doesn't work. I taught the 6th grade in 1960, and there was a teacher who taught near me who had no concept whatsoever of the principles I'm talking about here. No idea of them. And when her class would really push her, I mean, when they had taken her too far and she'd had it. When she crossed that imaginary line, she would get up on her desk and blow a whistle at the class. The kids loved it. She was an overweight woman, and they would plot at lunchtime how they could get her up on that desk. You can imagine how silly she looked blowing a whistle at the class. She had no action whatsoever. She only had her anger and this kind of reinforcement for the behavior that she least wanted. Anger will not motivate. Have you heard yourself saying to your kids, "It's the last time I want to tell you for the last time"? See, and you follow them around and you say, "Why don't you do right, Jack? I do declare, boy. Why do you always do it the wrong way?" And you say it so many times that he doesn't even hear you anymore. It's like a person who lives by a railroad track. There's a train rumbling 8 feet away and he doesn't even hear it. It's shaking his house down and he's not even aware of it, because anger does not motivate. Your kids don't care if you get mad. I think they rather like it. To get this big, powerful adult, you see, reduced to tears and anger and frustration is, in the conflict of wills, a triumph. That's a battle. So let me illustrate a better way, but first let me illustrate what typically happens in a home situation on a given evening. If you watch very closely, maybe you might see the footprints of your own family at this point. Let's call this axis down here time, okay? And a given evening begins at 0 point in time by definition. That means the moment the kids come home from school, that represents 0 point, and we go through the evening in that way. Let's put this ordinal axis here and call this emotion, okay? This is anger between a parent and child. And let's say, for purposes of illustration, that you begin at 0 point in emotion with your child at that moment. You're not angry at him. He comes in the door and you greet him and you take him in the kitchen and you give him some milk and cookies and so on, and you're not angry, and the evening is just starting. 0 point in emotion, and supposedly we'll call it 0 point in time and emotion. But folks, they are not at the same place at that moment. Now, Johnny got up at 6 o'clock in the morning and he began running and jumping and climbing and tearing and pulling and pushing and burning through the day. Ran off to catch the bus and ran up and down the aisles of the bus all the way to school. Climbed over things, got off the bus, ran out on the playground till the bell rung, went into school, went through all the activities of the day. At lunchtime and at break time, he was on the crash rollover bars and he played football after school, caught the bus and ran all the way home, and comes in the door and he still has loads of energy left to spare. I've never fully understood that. In fact, I resent it a great deal. But that's the way he feels. But Mother, you see, is not in the same situation. She's in a much different situation. She got up at 6 o'clock this morning, too, and fixed breakfast for the family and got it all together and got the kids off to school and then cleaned it all up, and perhaps she's been chasing a couple of toddlers all day. And it comes to 3 o'clock in the afternoon and the kids are starting to come home, and Mother's tired. You see, that was 6 o'clock in the morning, so we got 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. She has already put in 9 hours. But the hard thing about it is that she still has a long evening ahead, because she's got to go to the store and get the groceries and bring it home and cook it and clean it up and get the kids in the tub and change the baby's diapers and bring the kids 8 glasses of water and say the bedtime prayers, and I get depressed just thinking about it. And she gets depressed thinking about it too, because you see, she may have, it's 3 and she's got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. She's got, what, 6 hours, maybe 7 hours of work left, and the hardest hours in the day are left before her. So Mother's a little bit uptight. She greets him with a smile, but she still doesn't take very much to irritate her, because she is already fatigued. And so Johnny comes in and he does begin to irritate her. And in the first place, he can't find anything to do, you know, right? I heard, you know him. Can't find a thing to do. He's loaded with energy, but he can't think of a thing to do, so he's bugging everybody. He's teasing his little brother and pulling the dog's tail, and then he spilled the dog's water. And he's just kind of falling around with nothing to do. Most of all, he's going to the toy closet and jerking out plastic stuff. You know, there's the checkers and the chess and all those stuff, and it's everywhere. And Mother has a pretty good idea who's going to get to clean that up. And so she's starting to do a lot of yelling at him, and she tells him to go to the bathroom and wash his hands because dinner's hot, and he stays gone 9 minutes, and he comes back, and his hands are still dirty. You been there? You know what I'm talking about? This happens in nearly every house, nearly every night. There is this kind of struggle that goes on, and Mother is getting more and more hot about it and is doing a lot more yelling and warning, and there's a great deal of irritation between the two of them. Finally, folks, it comes to that fateful moment called bedtime. Loaded, loaded, loaded with emotion. And she tells Johnny to go get in the tub. And Johnny is not accustomed to doing anything that he doesn't want to do. And he's sitting on the floor, and she says, "Young man, now listen to me. You got school tomorrow, and I want you to get the stuff picked up and go get in the tub." Now, that sounded a whole lot like it meant get the stuff picked up and go get in the tub. That didn't mean that at all. That meant start thinking about getting the stuff picked up and go get in the tub. She would fall over if he'd do it. He doesn't do things that he doesn't want to do when she says it like that because he doesn't have to. She didn't expect him to. It was not intended that he should do it yet. It was an early warning system. She waits about 10 minutes, and then with deliberately greater emotion, she says, "Now listen, young man, I told you 10 minutes ago, you know, it still doesn't mean do it. It means we're getting closer." See, he understands her role, she understands his role. It's analyzed, it's computerized. They go through this 8 times a day. Whenever she wants him to do something he doesn't want to do. And then she gets a little more tense in about 10 minutes, and she says more, and then finally, blowy, it happens. She blows up at him. And what she's saying when she has this emotional explosion, you see, she really goes all to pieces and she draws a line. And what she's saying at that moment is, "Young man, I am through talking to you. I am now ready to do something about it." She is saying, "I am now ready to take some action." The anger says, this is anger, says, "I am ready to take some action." What amazes me about children is that they know precisely where your action line is. And well, they should, because you convey it in about a dozen ways. In the first place, you use their middle name at that time. James Robert Bryant. And also your speech becomes much more staccato. You know, "Young man, I told you." See? And your face turns red. It's a very important clue. Now, what amazes me about children is that they will take you right out to your line. Wherever you draw it, wherever you say, "I've had it, that's as far as I'll go, don't go any further, or there'll be action." They'll take you right out to that point and bump it. Bump it, bump it, bump it. But they will seldom go beyond it, except to find out if the action is really there. And they'll test that a time or two, like Siggy did with me, you see, and he'll say, "Are you really tough enough? Will you accept my challenge?" And if the action is there, then next time they'll stop there. And they know a lot more about this conflict than you and I do, because they give their full-time effort to it, and we only play the game when we have to, you see. Folks, I could give you so many illustrations of that. Shirley and I have a very good friend. In fact, the family is friends of ours who have, I think, 4 of the most beautifully disciplined kids I've ever seen. I think they just happen to be compliant kids. But they are beautifully behaved and loving kids. I flew into an airport in Denver and met them for the first time. And by the time I walked out of the airport, I was holding hands with one of them. The other one has his arms around my neck, and they're just that kind of kids. And the parents have done a great job of balancing love and control. But they get tested, too. And the father was telling me that they were in a restaurant, And the 5-year-old was just suddenly bugging everybody and asking who's in charge here. It was so clear that he wanted to know. And he put his fingers in the water and splashed it in his sister's face. He was being sassy to his mother. He was just looking for ways to defy authority. And finally, the father had had it. He'd had enough. He reached the action line. He took the boy by the arm, and he marched him out of the door of the cafeteria and out into a parking lot and behind a car where he proceeded to give him the spanking he'd been begging for. There was a lady in the restaurant who watched all this happen and became very indignant. And she got up and she marched out of the restaurant and out into the parking lot and into their faces and shook her finger in the father's face and said, "Let that boy go. If you don't let him go, I'm going to call the police." And the 5-year-old, who had been jumping up and down and crying, immediately stopped crying and looked up at his dad and says, "What's wrong with that woman, Dad?" Children understand. They understand that concept. And it is a deliberate, almost a willful thing, a conscious thing to test you to that point. And wherever you draw the line, that's how far they'll take you. Now, folks, there is a very important concept that I need to convey, especially to the screamer who's here. And it's very easy to be a screamer. You don't have to be a bad parent to be a screamer. It's just very easy to fall into that trap of doing a lot of yelling and warning and getting very, very angry. And if you'll stay with me for just a moment, I think I can explain it, although it's very hard to put into words, very difficult to express. If you listen to me, it's not your problem, it's mine in putting it into words, but let me see if I can express it. Because the anger occurs simultaneously with the child finally doing what you told him to do. "Johnny, go get in that tub." "Get in the tub, Johnny." And then you blow apart, and Johnny goes and gets in the tub. Provided the phone doesn't ring, or the doorbell ring, or you lose your concentration, then he can wander back. You know, that's one of the rules of the game. But when you blow up and you finally get angry, then he does what you told him to do. Because those things happen simultaneously, there is an inclination for parents and teachers to assume that it was the anger that got him in the tub. That is an error in reasoning. It was not the anger that put him in the tub. What was it? It was the action that put him in the tub. That's what put him in the tub. You don't need the anger. You do not need anger to control children. That teacher who said I have to stay mad all the time to control my class, you see, was using anger to control. It doesn't work. Action is what controls. And I'll admit to you teachers who are here, if the society that you live in and the school board that you work for and the parents that you represent strip you of your ability to take action, then you're going to have no discipline, because you've got to have action. You don't need anger in dealing with children. Let's go back to that situation. Little Johnny's sitting on the floor. What should you say to him? How are you going to get him in bed without anger? I think it's wise to say, "Johnny, now listen to me. I want you to just put down what you're doing and just raise your head. You don't have to stop what you're doing. Just look at me. I want your eyes to be connected with my eyes. Let me see them. All right. Are you listening? What I'm about to say to you is very important. So I want you to tune in on me, okay? Listen to me now. You have 20 more minutes to do what you're doing. I know you're having fun. I don't want to stop that. I want you to come with me, and we're going to go set the buzzer on the clock for 20 minutes. You know how long 20 minutes? It means when that little hand gets up there. In 20 minutes, the buzzer is going to go off. You can do anything you want for 20 minutes. Have a ball. But Johnny, now listen to me. Are you listening? This is very important. When you hear that buzzer go off, not 5 minutes later, not 3 minutes later, not 1 minute later, not 10 seconds later, when it rings in your ear. I want you, are you with me? I want you to stand and head for the tub and don't come back. Now, are you with me? Now, if you have any questions, now's the time to ask them. See, what you're doing, you see, is you're drawing the boundary lines clearly in advance, letting him know what is and what is not acceptable behavior. You have not screamed, you have not threatened, you have merely said, this I want of you. And every child needs to hear from somebody, this is what I want of you. The boundaries are established. 20 minutes, if you have not been used to dealing with Johnny in this way, the buzzer's going to ring and he's not going to move because that's the way he's been trained to do. He's waiting for you to get mad. I think it would be very wise now. Here you are. See, you're clear back here. You're right at the beginning. You're not angry. Well, you put it anywhere you want. You can put that line anywhere you want to. You can put it here, here, here. It does not matter. Wherever you draw it, if you're willing to take a little bit of action after it, Johnny will live within it and live there with safety. So let's back this all the way up here to this situation. You have told him what you wanted him to do, and he doesn't move. What you going to do about it? Well, you have to be willing to take a little bit of action very early in the game, which many parents are very uncomfortable doing because it seems so cold-blooded, and say to Johnny, that isn't going to work next time. Now, if you can't think of anything to do there, maybe I can suggest something to you. I have suggested in my book, Dare to Discipline, that you make use of a little muscle that lies equidistant between the neck and the shoulder, right there. It's called the trapezius muscle. And when you squeeze it, it sends little messengers up to the brain that says, avoid recurrence at all costs. And you walk up to Johnny and you squeeze that little muscle. You ought to practice on each other. And it hurts. It does hurt. And he goes down on the ground. And you say, Johnny, listen to me now. I didn't get any pleasure out of that. That didn't give me any pleasure at all. I don't see any reason in the world for me to ever have to do that to you again. But listen to me, Johnny. Tomorrow night's going to be the same way. You decide. You see, I am your mother, and I have to see that you get enough rest. And if you don't get enough rest, you don't do well in school, and your eyes are red. They were red today because I let you stay up too late last night, and I love you too much to see that happen. So when I tell you, Johnny, that you have to go to bed, that means you have to go to bed. And that's not the only thing I'm going to tell you. All through your childhood, there will be things that I will tell you because I'm looking out for you, because I love you and because I care for you. And in those moments when you say, I won't do what you tell me to do, then you're going to face the consequences because that's life. And it'll be that way in your adult life, too. See what you're trying to do? You're hooking behavior with consequences. I know a lot of kids who do not know behavior and consequences are linked. The parents go to school and prevent the school from taking any kind of action when the child has been blatantly defiant. The child is 16 and he wrecks the car and you pay to have it fixed. He's 17, he gets a ticket and you pay for it. All the way through, you act to break behavior and consequences. You break that and he really does not know those things are connected. And as a result, he's 21 years old and he gets his first job and he goes in to work late 4 times in a row and he gets fired and he cannot believe it. Never in his life has behavior been connected with consequences. It's very important for him to begin to feel that those are connected. Now, I mentioned the use of the trapezius muscle. That's a physical form of punishment. We've talked too much about that tonight. I really don't believe in much physical punishment. It is appropriate on occasions, but there are all kinds of other things you can use. And besides, you don't want to use that kind of discipline when the kids get a little bigger. You can get into real trouble squeezing the trapezius muscle of high school students. In fact, folks, the general rule to follow is if you can't reach it, don't squeeze it. I said this is not limited to physical punishment by any means. Let me give you an example. I bet you many parents here have the problem we have or had when our daughter was in the 5th grade. Danae was in the 5th grade, and she got up in the morning, usually a little bit late. And Danae is, you probably don't have this problem, Danae is super compulsive about her room. She's very proud of it, and she's got it all fixed up with all her stuff, and she will not leave in the morning until everything is in its place. Bed made perfect, all the stuff away, drawers shut. Ryan does not have that problem, I'd say. But Danae feels that way about her room, and because of that, she'd get up late, work slowly, and then would not be ready to leave on time. And here comes the carpool group, and she's not ready. And so what's Shirley going to do? Shirley's chasing around after her and saying, Danae, it's 10 minutes to, and you haven't done it, and I was here 10 minutes ago, and how come you haven't got your shoes on? And there was just a great deal of conflict going on, and Shirley was inadvertently falling into this trap of using anger to motivate. Folks, it is the easiest thing in the world to fall into that. I still fall into it, and I know better than that, but it's still, we get irritated, and then we get reinforced in it. It's very easy to fall into that trap. Well, this was going on, and Shirley and I sat down and talked about it and decided there had to be an easier way to get Danae up and out without going through all that emotion. So we worked out a little system that worked out very well. We called it checkpoints. And we set it up with Danae so that she had to be out of bed, standing upright. Didn't have to be awake, just had to be out of bed, standing upright at 6:30 in the morning. I did not say 6:31. I did not say 6:32. 6:33 would not count. It had to be before 6:30 on a digital clock hit 6:31. See, the more concrete the boundary, the better. 6:30. All right? And if she went back to bed, she lost it. All right? 6:30. And if she went into the kitchen, and on the refrigerator was a little checkpoint chart with that date on it. And for checkpoint 1, that's the first checkpoint, she either said yes or no. Couldn't be any more simple. Didn't have to ask for a judgment or a ruling. She either was out of that bed at 6:30 or she was not, yes or no. All right, then she had 40 minutes until 10 after 7 to have her room fixed the way she wanted it, have her teeth brushed and her hair combed, and to be dressed and to be sitting down at the piano in the morning. Now, that gave her 40 minutes. She could do all of that in 10 minutes if she wanted to, and the only way she could not have it done is to not want to have it done, because it's just not that much work. So she had 40 minutes to do a 10-minute job. But at 7:10, she either was or was not finished and sitting down to play the piano. And she went into the kitchen, and for the second checkpoint, she checked yes or no. That's it, yes or no. All right, it's the end of the evening, and we're evaluating the morning. And we look and we see, checkpoint missing. What do? Do we get mad and scream and throw things and threaten and demand and cry and wring our hands and stomp and pound? No. All that we do is say, Danae, if you miss one checkpoint per day, you go to bed 30 minutes early tonight. And if you miss 2 checkpoints, you go to bed an hour early, which is a very healthy thing. If not for Danae, for Shirley and me. You know the interesting thing? Danae loved that system. It had definite limits. She knew the target. She knew what to shoot at. And if my memory serves me right, Shirley, I think this is correct. She went 4 months without missing a checkpoint because she had a definite target. It just smoothed out the morning. It was no longer necessary to have that kind of struggle and that kind of fight between us. Now, you can use your creativity to find a similar kind of system which depends on action instead of anger. I might tell you that that system broke down miserably later in the year. You know why? She started missing checkpoints, and we were too busy to enforce it at that time. And we started accumulating time to go to bed early, and it got to where we were not delivering on the promise, and it was gone. See, we collapsed on the action, and the system collapsed. You've got to be willing to take some action. Anger is not necessary. It doesn't work. Now, folks, I got to tell you something. It is 9:40, and I've been talking for a long time. I want to know what you want, because I have 2 more important things to say, but I only want to say them if you can tolerate it. And thank you for that outpouring of affection. That was the weakest applause I think I ever heard. Well, all 4 of you stick around and we'll... Well, I'll hit it very quickly, okay? Because I talk a lot about discipline with a young child, about the importance of accepting his challenges and winning those confrontations and the punishment that sometimes goes with it. People frequently misunderstand me and believe that I take the same approach as the child goes on up the years, and especially into adolescence, and I don't feel that way. You see, your job is to win those confrontations in the early years and establish yourself as the leader, and then work yourself out of a job thereafter, and open that hand and let your kids go. And there is some rebellion that takes place in the adolescent years that's healthy. It really ought to occur, because without it, the child would go into adulthood with that mommy, daddy, little boy, little girl kind of relationship, and that's not healthy. And some of that ripping and tearing of flesh in the adolescent years is necessary. It's painful, but it's necessary. And folks, I need to know who's here. May I see the hands of those of you who consider yourself committed Christians? Oh my goodness, that's tremendous. I know it's not everybody, and I will not insult those who have the other frame of reference, but nevertheless, I need to speak at this moment to the people who held up your hands. I really believe that Christians have a greater problem with this task of letting go than some non-Christians. And the reason is because we care so much about the outcome with our kids. Not that others don't care, but we are much more specific in what we care about. We care a whole lot about marriage inside the faith, and I want to tell you that's one of the most important things in my life. We care a whole lot about certain concepts of sin with our kids, and we worry a great deal toward the end of childhood that maybe we haven't done the job right. Maybe they won't do what we want them to do. Maybe everything we've taught them will be thrown back in our faces. And there's a great deal of tension that begins to develop in late adolescence. And our tendency is to grab and hold and not allow our kids to grow up, and to try to keep them from making mistakes, and to bail them out when they do make mistakes, and to follow them around telling them what they ought to do. And especially at the latter end of childhood, over at about 18, 19, 20 years of age, folks, you had better let go. Because if you don't, your child who has a passion to be an independent, mature adult in his own right may defy you and break all the rules you've set just to prove he's independent of you, and that you can't do that to him anymore. And I had a mother who came to me. I've had many that I've talked to along this line. She came to me because her 20-year-old son, Paul, wasn't minding her anymore. And she wanted to know what she could do about it, and we talked about it, and I said, really, I think that your job as his mother is done. He is not doing what you want him to do. I know that. She said, you don't understand. He's living with the wrong people, and he won't go to the school that he ought to go to, and he's dating the wrong girls, and he won't come to church. And I said, I know all that, and that's very painful, and it would be painful for me in your shoes. Nevertheless, he is almost a man, and you better let him go. She said, how can I do it? And I said, I think you ought to sit down and write a letter to him to release him. And I told her how to do that, and so she went home and worked on it, and she brought me back the stickiest thing that you ever saw. It was filled with this kind of stuff. Why don't you do right? And I said, that's not quite what I had in mind. And I said, let me write one for you. So I wrote a letter for her, and she liked it, and she sent it, and then she gave me permission to use it in my book, Hide or Seek, and this is taken from that. Let me read it to you. This is the most important letter I've ever written to you, and I hope you will take it as seriously as it is intended. I have given a great amount of thought and prayer to the matter that I want to convey, and I believe I'm right in what I've decided to do. For the past several years, you and I have been involved in a painful tug of war. You have been struggling to free yourself from my values and my wishes for your life. At the same time, I've been trying to hold you to what we both know is right. Even at the risk of nagging, I've been saying go to church, choose the right friends, make good grades in school, live a Christian life, prepare wisely for your future, etc. I'm sure you've gotten tired of this urging and warning, but I've only wanted the best for you. This is the only way that I knew of keeping you from making the same mistakes that so many others have made. However, I have thought all this over during the last month, and I believe that my job as your mother is now finished. Since the day you were born, I have done my best to do what was right for you. I have not always been successful. I've made mistakes and I've failed in many ways. Someday you will learn how difficult it is to be a good parent, and perhaps then you'll understand me better than you do now. But there's one area where I have never wavered. I have loved you with everything that is within me. There's no way to convey the depth of my love to you through these years, and that affection is as great today as it's ever been. It will continue to be there in the future, although our relationship will change from this moment. As of now, you're free. You may reject God or accept Him as you choose. Ultimately, you will answer only to Him anyway. You may marry whomever you wish without protest from me. You may go to UCLA or USC or any other college of your selection. You may fail or succeed in each of life's responsibilities. The umbilical cord is now broken. I'm not saying these things out of bitterness or anger. I still care what happens to you, and I'm concerned for your welfare, and I'll pray for you daily, and if you come to me for advice, I'll offer my opinion. But the responsibility now shifts from my shoulders to yours. You're a man now, and you're entitled to make your own decisions, regardless of the consequences. Throughout your life, I've tried to build a foundation of values which would prepare you for this moment of manhood and independence. That time has come, and my record is in the books. I have confidence in you, Paul. You're gifted, and you've been blessed in so many ways, and I believe God will lead you and guide your footsteps, and I'm optimistic about the future. But regardless of the outcome, I will always have a special tenderness in my heart for my beloved son. Whether you say it or whether you write it, there has to come a moment when you say, my record is in the books, and I let you go. Some spiritual leaders, some Christian leaders disagree with that, and I have to point you to my reference in this case, which is the story of the prodigal son. The father in that situation symbolizes God Himself. That's who He represents. And He let His son go. We have to assume the boy was old enough to make his own decision. The father knew what his son was going to do. He was going to go out with prostitutes and wallow with pigs, and he knew he would spend all his money. But we have to assume that the boy was old enough to make that decision. And the father let him go. And he let him go with such love that the boy could come back, you see, with dignity and respect when he came to his senses. And you know, a very interesting combination of verses in the Living Bible. It says, no one gave him anything. And in the next verse it says, when he finally came to his senses. You know what brought that boy to his senses? He got hungry. Daddy looked pretty good to him. And even the hired hands ate better than he did. And Daddy was a rich farmer, and he could have sent his servants to that country, faraway country, to find his boy. He could have bailed him out. He could have brought money by the basketful. Could have been a welfare program or something to help him. But instead, he got hungry enough to come back and repent. And I think we need to do that with our children. Oh, man, I wish I had time to talk to you. There's a book that's out right now. It's not a Christian book. It's got a lot of bad language in it, but boy, it conveys this message. It's called What Really Happened to the Class of '65. The nonsense you see on the television screen by that title is not the book at all. But they followed the class of '65 for 10 years to see what happened to them. You know what happened to them? Their parents were still there 10 years after high school graduation, shoveling out money, buying them a car, saying, come home and live with us. Why, you poor son, you're on drugs. I'll get you out of jail. I'll get you the best lawyer. You gotta let go and put them on their own. And if you have done a job in the early years and laid the foundation of values and that respect that I'm talking about, then you got something to build on when that moment of independence comes. I hasten, just truncate that comment and go to the last one, because I really can't afford to take you too far, and you've worked all week and the rest of it. Folks, I get a lot of mail at this time. My radio program draws 1,500 letters a month or more, and I just am drowning in the mail from people who are struggling over problems with the family. And some of it is so sad and so difficult. I think the most frustrating aspect of my life, number one right now, is an inability to meet the needs of those who call on me. And I can't meet the needs. Until January of 1976, I conscientiously answered every letter that came. And it got to the point where I was sitting all day long handling a counseling service by mail and not doing my own work. I was drowning in it. So I was forced to put together a form letter that says, I wish that I could help, and I only have so much time, and I'm awfully sorry, and God loves you, and I thank you for writing, but it hurts me to send it. And I still find myself answering a lot of mail because it's just so painful to send that letter back, especially when I get letters like the one I got not too long ago from a woman who said I was hated as a child. My parents hated me, both of them, and I never had any friends. I was disliked in the neighborhood and disliked at school. My phone never rang. She said I went into junior high school and I was the most unpopular person in school. Nobody loved me. Nobody needed me. And she said I went into high school and I met a 16-year-old boy. He's the first one that ever showed any interest in me, and he had the same problems that I did. And we got married kind of out of desperation. And she said, we've been married about 15 years, and now he is almost never at home, and when he's home, he doesn't talk to me. And she said, I still don't have any friends. She said, my neighbors don't know even who I am. She said, I went to church. She really said this. Said, I went to church, and I sat down, and I waited for somebody to show me that they cared about me, and nobody spoke to me, and I came home. And she said, I can't even have a decent conversation with anybody without forcing myself on them the way I am you at this moment. Will you help me? And I send back a form letter and I say, I'm awful sorry I can't help you. I'm awful busy and I wish you well, and stay warm and eat healthy, and may the Lord bless you. That hurts me. I don't have an answer for that problem, but it is my problem. This is a letter that came out of the masses. I don't know this lady. I will never know her, no doubt. But this is a very sad letter to me. She said, Dear sir, before I read it to you, I got to tell you something. This puts a ribbon on the whole evening, okay? And that objective of the whole evening is to shape the will without breaking the spirit. I've talked all evening about how the will is full strength at the moment of birth. You don't have to cultivate it. It is built into our nature, even in a compliant child. The will is made of steel. You can mold it. You can bend it. You've got a God-given responsibility to do so. On the other hand, the spirit is the most fragile characteristic in human nature. The spirit of a child deals with self-worth. And you can crush it when you're not even trying. You can crush it sometimes by humor in the family that goes a little bit too far. You can crush it by being so busy that he doesn't know he's loved. Anything that affects the worth of the child affects his spirit. You have to be very careful with the spirit. The will, you set up those boundaries and enforce them. You won't hurt him. Be careful what you do that says, we don't love you, we don't need you, We don't respect you. You're not included here. We wish you weren't here. Why aren't you like your brother? Why aren't you like your sister? Those things are very dangerous. This is a letter that illustrates that fact. Dear sir, more than anything else in the world, I want to have a happy family. That's the sad part, because there just isn't much chance of that. We have a girl, 7 years old, and a boy, 10. They don't get along at all. The boy and his father don't get along either, and I find myself screaming at the kids. Notice two messages I've been trying to convey tonight. One, her only method of discipline is screaming. And secondly, she constantly says, I don't know what to do about it. See, it's an absence of leadership. All right. And I find myself screaming at the kids and sitting on my son to keep him from hitting and kicking his sister. His teacher of the past year, you teachers will appreciate this, thought he needed to learn better ways of getting along with his classmates. And she put that nicely. That teacher went to school for 5 years to learn how to say that. This kid's driving her crazy, and she says he needs to learn better ways of getting along with his classmates. He had some problems on the playground, and he had a horrible time on the school bus, and he couldn't seem to be able to walk from the bus stop to our house without getting in a fight or throwing rocks at somebody, so I usually pick him up and I bring him home myself. He is very bright, but he writes poorly, and he hates to do it. He is impulsive and quick-tempered. We all are now. Our pediatrician says he has everything going for him. He is tall and strong, but Billy seldom finds anything constructive to do. He likes to watch television, play in the water, and dig in the dirt. He's 10 years old. We are very upset about his diet, but we haven't been able to do anything about it. He drinks milk and eats Jell-O and crackers and toast. Now she's going to tell you what a good diet is. In the past, he ate lots of hot dogs and bologna, but not much lately. He also craves chocolate and bubble gum, and we have a grandma nearby who sees that he gets lots of it. She also feeds him baby food. We haven't been able to do anything about that either. I wonder why not? How come we haven't been able? There's no leadership. His teachers, neighbor children, and his sister complain about him swearing and name-calling. Whenever something is missing or broken, we immediately think of Billy. This is really a sad situation because we're always thinking of him in a bad light. But hardly a day goes by when something isn't upset or broken. He's been breaking windows since he was a toddler. One day in June, he came home early from school and found the house locked, so he threw a rock through his bedroom window, broke it, and crawled in. Another day recently, he tried to glass cutter out on our bedroom mirror. He spends a great deal of time at the grandma's who caters to him. We feel she's a bad influence. But so are we when we are constantly upset and screaming. Anyhow, we have now what seems to be a hopeless situation. He's growing bigger and stronger, but not any wiser. So what are we to do, or where are we to go? Now get her final paragraph. My husband says he refuses to take Billy anywhere ever again until he matures and acts like a civilized human being. He has threatened to put him in a foster home. I couldn't send him to a foster home. He needs people who know what to do with him. Please help us if you can. Yours truly, Mrs. T. P.S. Our children are adopted, and there isn't much of anything left in our marriage. Now, folks, that's a very sad letter to me, and it's a frustrating letter, because it'd taken me 2 weeks to tell that woman what that letter evokes in me. The mistakes that she has made through the years. Do you see what's actually taking place here? You understand the dynamics of it? See, what you have here is a 10-year-old strong-willed child who has never in his life been able to find one person who had the courage to accept his challenge. And that's why he is asking everybody in his life, who's in charge here? He's challenging the teacher. Boy, she doesn't know what to do. She's calling home and says he needs to learn better ways of getting along with his classmates. He's giving a bus driver fits. He can't wait to get that kid off the bus. You can bet on it. And he's throwing rocks at the other kids in the neighborhood. And he's swearing and name-calling and beating up his sister. And he comes home and he uses a glass cutter on the mirror and he's throwing rocks through the window. And he's eating poorly. You see, this is a bright child. He really is. The pediatrician said it. He's bright. He's got a lot going for him. He knows what he's doing. There's no question in his mind about what he's doing. He is asking each person in his life, won't somebody accept my challenge, because there is nothing worse, there's nothing more scary than being 10 years old and being your own boss and not having one soul in the universe that is worthy of your respect. And he's begging somebody to accept that challenge. But nobody will. Instead, you see, he has a rampaging will. It has never been shaped. Instead, folks, what are they doing? They're directing all of their discipline at his spirit. Can't you hear this father say, why don't you grow up and act like a civilized human being? We're going to put you in a foster home. I'm not sure you belong here anyway. I'm not ever going to take you anywhere anymore. You embarrass me. Why can't you be like the other kids in the family? Do you get the message of what that father is really saying? Did you get the P.S. at the end? See, our children are adopted, and there isn't much of anything left in our marriage. Do you know what that father is saying? We didn't have to take you anyway. See, we didn't have to adopt you. You weren't born to us. I'm not sure you belong here anyway. And if you don't watch out, big shot, we're going to get rid of you. See, that has nothing to do with his will. That does not help with the will at all. What it does, it assassinates the spirit. And that's why that boy is so angry. That's why he's so mad. That's why he's challenging everybody. He can't find anybody that cares enough about him, that loves him, that'll set up reasonable boundaries and help shape his will. Instead, they have crushed his spirit. I want to tell you all that I really wish, you may find this hard to believe, I really wish if circumstances were a little different, that I could have Billy in my home for a short time. When I said if circumstances were a little different, I meant if I wasn't married to Shirley. Because that probably wouldn't work out under present circumstances. But I'd like to have a shot at him. I would really like to have him for a short time. And I would give him a little message. When he walked through that front door, before he unpacked his suitcase, there's some things I'd like to say to him. And I'd say it with all the emotion that was in me. I'd say, Billy, come on into the family room, some things we need to talk about. I want you to look me in the eye, Billy, because I am about to say the most important thing you have ever heard in your life. And I hope you never forget it. And you're going to find out someday that I mean it. First of all, Billy, I want you to know I love you. You are important to me. I would not have brought you here if it were not true. I didn't have to bring you to this home. I brought you here because you have an eternal soul, and you're going to live someplace in eternity. And that makes you important to God, and that makes you important to me. And you're going to find out as time goes on that it's for real. I really do care about you. And because of that, Billy, I will not treat you different from my other children. You'll have the same privileges, the same respect. I want to know what you're thinking. I want to know what you're saying. I want to know what you're feeling. You can sit down and talk to me, and if you feel I've been unfair, I'll listen to you. And Billy, it's going to be a good year, and I'm glad you're here. But there's something else that you should know. In fact, I really think you already know it. You see, you've been behaving in ways that have been very harmful to you, Billy. Not only harmful to you, but to other people. See, you've been breaking windows, and you've been eating poorly. You haven't been studying in school. You're failing there. And you've been getting in trouble at school, and you've been giving your sister a hard time. And we both know what's going on. I know the background, and you do too. And I know you're not impressed with that, and I'm not impressed with it either. And that's why, Billy, we're going to change it. We're going to change it because I care enough about you to help you change it. I know that's what you want too. And so, Billy, now listen to me. This is very important. I'm going to make it very, very clear what I expect of you. There won't be any doubt. We're going to write it down, exactly what I expect. And it's going to be highly specific and pretty tight. You may find it kind of difficult to stay within those boundaries. But it'll be the same boundaries my own children stay within. And we'll make it clear. Now, Billy, there will be times when you will accidentally break a rule or something. That's not what I'm worried about. I'm not worried about your accidents and mistakes. But, Billy, if the chances prove accurate, it is highly likely that in 4 or 5 days, or maybe a week or two, you're going to ask yourself, what'll he do if I don't do what he tells me to do? And Billy, that moment will probably come, and you'll deliberately, on purpose, break one of these rules. Not because you forgot, but on purpose. Now, Billy, listen to me. When that happens, I want you to know now that I'm going to bust you. I'm going to lay awake nights thinking up ways to make you miserable. Why? Because I don't love you? No, because I do love you. The easiest thing would be to just let you go on, but I won't do that. You're too important to let you go on. We're going to change this thing, and the two of us together are going to make it. Anything you need to say to me? If not, let's get on with it. You know what I found? Delinquents cannot tolerate that combination of love and discipline. Firm limits administered with love, where the spirit has a chance to grow, where self-worth has a chance to flower, and where the will begins to be shaped. See, the will and the spirit are two different things. We had a man out there in Los Angeles about 3 months ago who climbed up on the top of a building to jump off. And the police department and about 100 rescue people and everybody, my aunt lives in that building, and she told me the whole story, came to save him. He was a man whose spirit was crushed. He had no worth. He didn't even want to live. Finally, they managed to crawl out there, and they grabbed him and pulled him to safety and took him off and booked him, and he was going to get some psychiatric help or something. But his mother, and I would imagine his mother had always behaved this way, came down in some indignation and bailed him out. He went straight back to that building, up to the 32nd floor, and jumped off the building and killed himself in front of my relatives and other people. See what he did? His spirit was crushed, but his will was strong enough to defy the whole city. Army, Navy, Fire Department, police, everybody, rescue. His spirit was crushed. What we need to do is shape the will without breaking the spirit. You are a fantastic audience. I have held you far too long. I love you. I look forward to tomorrow. Thank you for being here.